Yeah, it is coolie this time. Green. But that's just because it's lemon lime. Probably see more of this thing coming up soon. Well, not the head. That'll be on my head. But anyway, what do we got? Greetings and felicitations again, my fellow perceptive purple people. I wanted to take a few moments to talk with you again about age limits on being President of the United States. It seems to be becoming an increasing coincidence that we end up having had a video years before an issue becomes the talk of the day, and this one isn't any different. Back a few years ago, I published a video on the subject on the possibility of an amendment to place an upper age limitation on being eligible to be president. Of course, I would recommend taking a look at that video, but to summarize, placing an upper age limitation upon this office would be short-sighted, as modern medical technologies are already coming to bear on slowing and even reversing the effects of aging that would allow, before the middle of the century, for active lifespans measured in centuries, not decades. Why bring it up again? Well, it seems there's a building chorus of voices calling for this very thing, along with calls for criminal records exclusions of varying types. I noticed this in a short by former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, which I will link in the description below, where he endorses these ideas. Alright, as I've already covered the age issue already, that leaves the criminal records as an exclusionary requirement to address. Spoiler alert. It may seem strange coming from a former anti-gang and narcotics enforcement specialist, and no, I have never been convicted of any felony. But this is not as good of an idea as one might initially think. Wait, before you go, before you take off on me, please hear me out on my logic. Did they leave? I can't see through this thing anyway. Anyway, our founding fathers had every opportunity to add this to the requirements for the office of the presidency. Why didn't they do so then, you might wonder? Well, for one thing, several of them would be considered as felonious criminals themselves according to the British Empire of the time. Now, I don't know, having not found anything debating the subject, but it seems to me that that would have been messy to try to figure that one out. For another reason, the Founding Fathers believed in most of the principles of democracy, if not all, which included the ability of a duly informed electorate to make the correct choice for whom they want to represent them in office. Now, it may seem that such was a poor decision in retrospect lately, but I would point out that the accuracy rate for the people voting for a president that actually respects the office has been 45-2 for about 95.74% accuracy rate so far. Still an A, if not a coveted A+. You see, there is an inherent downside to executive authority being in the hands of any person or persons, or even larger populations, in that eventually a poor decision will be made. Or two, it seems. Anyways, those mistakes do not make for a failure of the system, but a vindication that it still works, even if in a negative light, that the people do still have the ability to vote for whom they want. So these requirements, or rather restrictions, were not placed into the Constitution so as to give the people the widest latitude in their abilities to choose their president. They also included the use of the electoral college to try to counter the eventual anomalous choice of the easily swayed people, but that's a whole other video. This amendment would also place an opportunity for a state-level restriction against a person that a currently dominant political party of a given state doesn't like from being able to become president and deny all the other state citizens to have their say on whether that person should be in office of a national leadership. I mean, what if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were to have run for president, such as he considered doing back in 1967 as a third-party candidate? If this amendment were to have been in place at that time, Alabama of that time would have jumped at the opportunity to use their criminal justice system towards that end. Such was their fear of his ideas of progress and equality at the time. Remember, any amendment that is to be put into our Constitution is generally intended to be permanent. Therefore, it simply must be put to logical scrutiny, and the purple political equations, in this case, there are at least two red flags to render it moot. In the first case of upper age limitations, enacting an amendment of this nature will quickly become an inappropriate restriction on an otherwise viable and even potentially superior candidate. In the second case, the real and presently clear danger for any criminal history ban is how this could be so readily abused to prevent the people of the country from being able to make their own choice on a candidate's record. As a final thought, I would also point out one of the valid yet sweetly ironic complaints that allowed for the rise of MAGA and Trumpism has been the overreaching in regulatory laws without due consideration and forethought towards how those laws actually impact those whom they are supposed to represent. This nanny state amendment, much like the 18th, would be doomed to failure or repeal, or at the very least, a restriction not upon the candidates you can vote for so much as a restriction on how much control that you have over who represents you, regardless of your party affiliation or beliefs. So what are your thoughts about this? Do you find our position reasonable, or do you have more logical and/or rational ideas on the subject? Do be prepared for vigorous yet polite debate, but let's hear it. As always, I'll see you in the comments section below. Till our next chat, remember to keep your balance and stay purple, people. We'll see you again real soon, and let's get America together again.